to Deep Sleep Stories. Thank you to everyone who's been listening. If these stories help you relax or fall asleep, a short review, comment, or sharing the podcast with someone who might benefit is a simple and meaningful way to support the show so that we may continue to offer it for free. Now, take a slow, gentle breath and let's begin tonight's story.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, where for a little while the world grows very soft and quiet around you, and you are gently carried into a cozy anniversary evening in the snowy Alps. You can let your body begin to settle now. If you like, give your shoulders a slow, easy roll, and then let them sink a little deeper into the place where you are resting. Feel the surface beneath you supporting your weight, steady and dependable, holding you without effort. Take a slow breath in through your nose and feel the coolness of the air as it enters. Hold it for a gentle moment and then let it flow out, long and smooth, as if you are sighing away the day. Let your jaw loosen. Let your tongue rest softly in your mouth. Let your forehead smooth out like calm water in a quiet mountain lake. You might imagine that the room around you is growing dimmer and more peaceful, like the last light of evening sliding off snowy peaks. Maybe the air feels a little fresher, a little clearer, as though a window has opened somewhere far away, letting in the faint scent of pine and wood smoke. Outside that unseen window, snow is drifting down in slow, lazy spirals, each flake turning and spinning in the hush of the night. With every breath, you can allow any tightness in your body to loosen. Breathing in, you invite calm. Breathing out, you let go of whatever you do not need to hold on to right now. Thoughts, worries, lists, unfinished conversations, all of them set aside for another time. Imagine a distant train winding its way through mountain valleys, lanterns glowing in the windows as it climbs higher into the quiet night. Inside that train are two people traveling for an anniversary in the Alps, looking forward to a simple, cozy evening together. As you settle, as your breathing deepens, their story begins to unfold, slow and gentle, like snow settling on the slopes. And now, you can let the story carry you as we drift softly into the world of the mountains. There was a small village tucked high in the Alps, so snug and sheltered that it felt almost like a secret. At night, when the snow fell and the sky turned deep blue, the lights of the village glowed in warm golden pools, scattered along the narrow streets and clustered together around the little square. The roofs were layered in snow, smooth and rounded like the backs of sleeping animals, and the chimneys whispered thin threads of smoke into the cold, quiet air. On one such winter evening, a train curved along the mountainside, its rhythm slow and steady. Inside one of the softly lit carriages, two travelers sat close together. Their names were Elena and Jonas, and they were on their way to celebrate an anniversary they had been dreaming of for a long time. Elena rested her head lightly against the window, watching the snow drift past. The glass was cold to the touch, and she could see the faint reflection of her own face layered over the shadowy shapes of pine trees and rocks sliding by outside. Jonas sat beside her, his shoulder warm against hers, his hands wrapped around a small enamel mug of tea that still steamed gently in the dim light. The carriage was almost quiet, only the soft murmur of other travelers, the occasional rustle of a page turning, and the gentle clatter of the wheels humming beneath them. Overhead, a lamp bathed their seats in a warm glow that softened the lines of the day and made everything feel a little further away, a little more distant and dreamlike. They were tired in the way that comes from busy weeks and long days, from alarms and emails and schedules. But under the tiredness, there was a shared glow of excitement, a quiet happiness that needed no big words. Elena's hand rested loosely in Jonas's, fingers woven together, and sometimes, without speaking, they would give each other the smallest, contented squeeze. Outside the window, the mountains rose higher and darker, their shapes fading into the night sky. Snowflakes brushed the glass and melted, leaving delicate trails that glistened and vanished. The world below grew softer, hushed as the train climbed, leaving the bright, loud valleys behind. At last, the train slowed and slipped into a tiny mountainside station. The platform lights shone through the falling snow, turning each flake into a small glint of light before it settled onto the ground. Elena and Jonas stood, stretching a little, and gathered their bags. There was no rush. The station was quiet, as if it had been waiting only for them. They stepped down onto the platform and were greeted by a soft cushion of snow beneath their boots. The sound of their steps muffled and gentle. The air was crisp, cool enough to sting their cheeks, and carried the scent of wood smoke and distant pine trees. Above them, the mountains rose in dark shapes against a sky dotted with stars, and everything felt still, like the evening was holding its breath in welcome. A small path led from the station into the village, lined with lanterns that glowed like tiny moons. As they walked, their breath rose in little clouds, and their footsteps left a pair of parallel tracks behind them, the marks of their arrival. Elena looped her arm through Jonas's, drawing closer, and he let his head lean lightly against hers for a moment. As they walked, the village itself was small and cozy, a cluster of wooden houses and stone cottages with shutters painted in soft colors. Some windows were lit, and through them they could see glimpses of other lives. A family gathered around a table, a woman reading by a fire, a cat curled on a windowsill, watching the snow. At the center of the village stood a little square paved with cobblestones, now softened with snow. A tall spruce tree, wrapped in gentle strands of lights, stood quietly in the middle, its branches heavy with white. Nearby, the village bakery had only a single light left on inside, a warm glow behind frosted glass, and the faintest trace of fresh bread and spice lingered in the air. Their chalet waited for them at the far end of a narrow lane where the houses thinned and the view opened back out onto the mountains. It was a modest wooden cottage with a stone base, its roof deep with snow, and a small balcony on the upper floor. Light spilled from the windows onto the snow, and smoke rose from the chimney in a lazy ribbon, promising warmth inside. They pushed open the door and stepped into a hallway lined with hooks and a worn wooden bench. A pair of thick wool slippers sat waiting, as if the chalet had been expecting them. The air inside was warm and smelled faintly of pine wood and something sweet, like honey or vanilla. Jonas laughed softly as he brushed snow from his coat, and Elena smiled as she traded her boots for the cozy slippers, feeling the gentle embrace of wool around her feet. They moved further inside and found the heart of the chalet, a sitting room with low beams and honey-colored walls, a stone fireplace where logs crackled and popped, and soft armchairs draped in blankets. A small table stood near the fire, already set with 2 simple mugs, a teapot, and a little plate of almond cookies dusted with powdered sugar. A note lay folded beside them, written in a looping hand, welcoming them to the mountains and wishing them a peaceful anniversary. They read it together, their heads close, and a quiet warmth bloomed in their chests. It was a small kindness, but it felt like exactly what they needed. A gentle invitation to slow down, to let the evening be simple and soft. They unpacked slowly, without hurry, placing their clothes in a carved wooden wardrobe, tucking their books onto a small shelf, setting a single framed photo on the bedside table. The world outside narrowed to the sound of the fire, the occasional soft creak of the wooden floor, and the whisper of wind brushing past the windows. Later, after the little rituals of arrival, they sat together in front of the fire. Elena curled her feet beneath her on the armchair, wrapped in a thick, knitted blanket that smelled faintly of lavender. Jonas sat on the rug with his back against the sofa, legs stretched out, hands cupped around a mug of tea that warmed his fingers. The firelight flickered over their faces, softening everything, making their eyes appear darker, their smiles gentler. Shadows danced on the ceiling, moving slowly as the flames shifted. On the table between them, a small candle burned, its flame a quiet echo of the fire. They spoke a little about the journey, about the snow, about how strange and lovely it felt to be so far from their everyday lives. But often they let silence settle between them, and it was a comfortable, peaceful silence. There was no need to fill it. There were no tasks waiting, no calls to make or messages to answer. There was only the present moment, expanding softly around them like the glow of the fire. Eventually they decided to take a brief walk through the village before the night grew too late. They bundled up again in coats and scarves, pulled woolen hats over their ears, and stepped out into the snow. The village was quieter now. The bakery's light had gone out and only a few windows still shone. Their breath moved in front of them in soft, little clouds. and the snow beneath their feet made a gentle crunching sound that echoed faintly between the houses. As they walked, they passed a small chapel with a wooden door and a narrow bell tower. The bell was still, but they imagined the sound it would make deep and slow, rolling through the valley on clear mornings. A faint scent of incense lingered near the door, and someone had left a small lantern glowing beside it, a tiny, steady light in the winter night. Beyond the chapel, the houses opened out into a slope that overlooked the valley. From here, they could see the faint outline of distant peaks, their ridges traced in silver by the scattered starlight. The sky was clear, a deep, quiet blue, and the stars seemed very close, as if they were hanging just above the tips of the trees. They stood side by side, Elena's arm wrapped through Jonas's, sharing the view. The cold nipped at their cheeks and noses, but it made the warmth of the chalet waiting for them feel even more precious. The mountains rose around them like gentle giants, watchful and calm, their centuries of stillness standing in contrast to the quick pace of the lives the couple had left behind for this brief visit. In the village, there was a quiet old story the parents sometimes told their children on winter evenings. They said that on certain nights, when the air was very clear and the snow very soft, the mountains listened more closely. They listened to the wishes of those who came with open hearts, who stood in the hush of the night and let themselves be completely still. Elena and Jonas did not know the story in words, but they felt something of it in that moment. They did not make any grand wishes, did not speak anything aloud, but as they stood together, they each felt a gentle, hopeful warmth bloom in their chest, a sense of being exactly where they needed to be, of time slowing down around them like snowflakes suspended in air. When the cold finally began to seep through their coats, they turned back toward the chalet, leaving their footprints as a soft, winding trail in the snow. The lights from the windows looked welcoming, and the thought of the fire and the blankets and the warm tea made their steps a little quicker, though still quiet and unhurried. Inside, the fire had burned down slightly, but it still glowed with a deep, reassuring warmth. Jonas added another log carefully, watching the sparks rise and vanish. Elena warmed her hands over the flames, feeling sensation return to her fingers, tingling and pleasant. They decided to celebrate their anniversary with something simple. On the small kitchen counter, a basket awaited them with local treats. A small round of cheese wrapped in cloth, a jar of dark mountain honey crusty rolls from the bakery, and a tiny bottle of herbal liqueur. They set everything out slowly, moving around the kitchen in easy, familiar patterns, brushing shoulders, trading quiet smiles. They ate at the little wooden table by the window, the candle on the table flickering gently. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but it was slower now, the flakes larger and heavier. They drifted in lazy spirals past the glass, and every so often a gust of wind would swirl them up again, only to let them drift back down. They toasted each other with small glasses of the herbal liqueur, its taste slightly sweet and sharp, with hints of pine and mountain flowers. The glasses made a soft, delicate sound as they touched, a little chime that hung in the air for a heartbeat before fading. There were no big speeches. They did not need them. Instead, they spoke in small, gentle memories. The first time they had met, a rainy morning when one had made tea for the other without being asked, a habit of leaving notes on the fridge, the way they had learned over time to listen more carefully to each other's quiet moods. Their words were punctuated by comfortable silences, by the sounds of the chalet, the crackle of the fire, the faint creak of wood as the building settled, the whisper of snow against the windows. After dinner, Elena brought out a small envelope from her bag, edges slightly worn as if it had been handled many times. Inside was a letter she had written for Jonas, a simple one filled with quiet gratitude. Jonas had his own letter, folded neatly in his pocket, waiting for the right moment. They exchanged them without ceremony, both smiling a little, both a little shy despite all the years they had shared. They did not read the letters aloud. Instead, they sat side by side on the sofa, each reading the words written for them, letting the sentences move slowly through them like a warm, gentle tide. Sometimes they would pause and look at each other, eyes soft and bright, then return to the pages. The letters spoke of small things, of ordinary days made better by the other's presence, of the comfort of shared routines, of the way the world felt a little steadier when they faced it together. They were not grand declarations. They were soft, rooted, and real, like the mountains outside, quiet and enduring. When they had finished, they folded the pages carefully, almost reverently. Then they sat together in silence for a long time, leaning against each other, feeling the rise and fall of each other's breathing, the steady beat of each other's hearts. At some point, Jonas stood and went to the window, drawing back the curtain a little. The snow had eased, and the sky beyond the glass was a deep, velvety blue. The stars were very bright now, scattered across the heavens in slow, sprawling patterns. He called softly to Elena, and she joined him at the window. They stood there for a while, looking out. The village lay hushed below them, the roofs gentle and rounded beneath the snow. A faint line of smoke rose from chimneys here and there, and somewhere in the distance a dog barked once, then fell quiet. The peaks were luminous under the starlight, their edges softened by the drifting snow. It was as though the whole landscape was breathing slowly in and out in a vast, peaceful rhythm. The sight of it seemed to draw the last remnants of tension from their bodies, loosening their shoulders, easing the small lines of worry that sometimes settled at the corners of their eyes. Eventually they stepped out onto the chalet's small balcony, wrapped in blankets. The wood beneath their feet was cold, but they hardly felt it, encircled by wool and by each other's arms. The air was crisp and still. When they breathed in, it felt clean and clear, as though it washed gently through them, carrying away anything heavy. They stood there in the quiet, listening. There was so much silence that it almost seemed like sound, The faint ticking of cooling roofs, the soft shift of snow sliding from a branch, the distant murmur of a stream beneath ice, the mountains keeping their ageless watch, seemed to hold the village in a careful, patient embrace. After a while, Elena closed her eyes and simply listened to the night. Jonas watched her for a moment, then closed his eyes as well. Under the stars, wrapped in warmth, the two of them let the world narrow to the feeling of the other's presence, to the shared rhythm of their breathing, to the slow, steady comfort of being exactly where they were. In the old story of the village, it was said that on nights like this, when hearts were quiet and open, the mountains left a gift. Not a visible one, not a coin or a charm, but a quieter kind of gift, a memory so soft and luminous that it could be revisited long after the snow had melted, long after the bags had been unpacked and the routines had resumed. That night on the balcony, without knowing the story, Elena and Jonas received that gift. It settled over them like the snow on the rooftops, like the starlight on the peaks, leaving a gentle glow inside them that they would carry away in the morning, and the next morning, and all the mornings after. When the cold finally brushed at their cheeks enough to make them shiver, they went back inside. They banked the fire carefully, letting it burn down to a deep ember-red glow that would last through the night. The room was dim now, lit only by a small bedside lamp in the room beyond, and the soft throb of the coals. In the bedroom, the bed waited, layers of soft blankets and crisp, cool sheets. They moved through their familiar evening routines in the unfamiliar space, folding clothes over a chair, placing their books on the little table, switching off the lamp for a moment, and then deciding to leave it on low just for a while. Outside, the mountains watched. The village slept. The snow fell in quieter and quieter patterns. Elena slipped beneath the blankets and felt the warmth rise around her, cocooning her in softness. Jonas joined her, the mattress dipping gently beneath his weight. They lay facing each other, close enough that they could feel each breath, each little shift. They spoke a few last words, soft and slow, their voices barely more than whispers. Their sentences drifted off at the edges, more feeling than language. Then, as the minutes passed, their words grew fewer, their eyes grew heavier, blinking slower and slower. The sounds of the chalet wrapped around them. The embers in the fireplace shifted now and then, with a tiny sigh. Somewhere deep in the wood, a board creaked in response to the changing temperature, a small, familiar night sound. From outside, a faint, sweeping hush of wind moved past the window, not a howl or a cry, but a soft, almost soothing murmur. Their breathing deepened, their bodies grew heavier and more relaxed, settling deeply into the mattress. The covers rose and fell in a slow, steady rhythm, like the calm swell of a distant sea. In the darkened room, time loosened its grip. Minutes blurred together, the last thoughts of the day dissolved like snowflakes against warm glass. The anniversary they had planned for so long was not marked by grand gestures or dramatic moments, but by this: the quiet of the mountains, the softness of the snow, the warmth of a hand held in the dark, the steady comfort of shared sleep. Outside, the stars wheeled slowly over the peaks. The mountains stood as they had always stood, serene and enduring. The village dreamed its small, peaceful dreams, and in the wooden chalet at the edge of the lane, two hearts rested in the simple, deep contentment of being together. Far away from that village where you are resting now, your body can continue to soften as if some of that mountain stillness has drifted down to you through the quiet of the night. You might imagine that you too are wrapped in a warm blanket, safe inside a small wooden chalet. The fire is burning low. The snow is falling outside, but inside everything is gentle and calm. Your bed holds you just as firmly, just as kindly as the mountains hold the village. Feel the weight of your body where it meets the surface beneath you. Let your shoulders sink a little deeper. Let your arms rest more heavily. Let your legs grow soft and warm, any tension melting away like snow under the first touch of sun. Your breath moves in and out, slow and unhurried. In and out. In and out. Nothing is being asked of you now. There is nowhere you need to go. Nothing you need to do. Thoughts may still drift through, the way snowflakes drift past a window. You do not need to chase them. You can simply watch them pass, light and gentle, and then let them fall away into the quiet. Imagine the mountains standing nearby, vast and calm, their slopes covered in soft, unbroken snow. They do not hurry, they do not strain, they simply are, resting in their own stillness. You can let a little of that stillness into yourself with every breath. The night is kind, the world is soft. You are safe. You are held. If sleep comes now, you can welcome it like a friendly guest, opening the door and letting it step softly inside. If it takes its time, that is all right too. You can rest here in this gentle space between waking and dreaming, letting your body do exactly what it needs. The story of the mountains and the small chalet can continue quietly in the background, like a lullaby, with no sharp edges, no loud notes, just the hush of snow, the glow of embers, the slow, steady rhythm of hearts at peace. Let your eyes grow heavier. Let your thoughts grow slower. Let your breath guide you downward, deeper and deeper, into warmth, into safety, into quiet. The night is here to watch over you. The world can wait until morning. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.